Hello, everybody, and welcome back to what will be a very interesting episode of First Ring Daily. I'm Brad, he's Paul, and before we dive in there, that's not Cloudberry. But if imagine this is Cloudberry, because Miracast doesn't want to support me right now. Check out cloudberrylab.com/FRD and grab a free trial offer and learn how to back up your data a little bit better and keep yourself more prepared against ransomware. All right, Paul, let's dive in here because, Paul, I know you've been in the industry for a while. I've been writing about this for about 12 years, actually, I think now. Mm-hmm. When Microsoft pushes out a press release at, we'll say 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, give or take, blog post, is that because they did something right or they needed to clear something up?
I think what you're trying to ask is, was that planned? And the answer, Joe, for Joe Belfiore is no. I have so many complaints about Microsoft, but one of the big ones is that they dribble out information via tweets that are replies to other people's questions, and I really hate that. I have a big problem with that. And Joe Belfiore is a great guy, but he's particularly bad at this. Like, he just has a really bad habit of doing that. And so we got up yesterday, and the big news was Microsoft confirms S-Mode. It's like, really? Mm-hmm. And he confirmed it in a tweet to somebody, and of course it was inaccurate. He talked about next year, I guess is the way he said it. And it's like, come on, dude. Like, seriously, can we just get anything right over there? So, adding to the confusion, we'd all kind of given up on the day. I think Mehdi was literally asleep. He does live in England, after all. But at about 8:35 my time, p.m., Joe Belfiore, or underlings writing for Joe Belfiore, published a blog post on the Windows blog about S-Mode. And it's like, guys, seriously. But okay. But you know what? At least they did it in a formal way, in the right place, belatedly. But they did it, so I'm at least happy about that.
And so, kind of the big news here is that S-Mode, as Paul and I had said, and so much so that I get to reuse this fancy graphic that I think I used in my initial post, was accurate, and that they're bringing S-Mode. They're getting rid of Windows 10 S, the SKU. Paul, actually, I had a question for you. Do you know, there was never a period you ever actually had to pay to get out of Windows 10S, right? Because they kept extending it. So nobody's actually paid for it. Nobody ever will, I think.
That's right. That's right. And the funny thing is, before this blog post went out, we were talking about this topic on Windows Weekly, and Mary Jo and I kind of went back and forth on this notion of, charging for updates. And I'm like, there's no way they're going to charge for updates. And she's like, but of course they are. This is how Microsoft monetizes Windows, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, look, we know from the documentation that we saw at the beginning of February that the Windows Home S-Mode to Home upgrade was going to be free. So at least that part of it would be free. It would be free for most individuals. I think that's fine. Honestly, them taking this step just to make it a freebie is big. And in the wake of this, I kind of dug around and asked about, how does this going to work? Is it going to be a real mode? Is something you can switch in and out of? And the answer is no. It's going to work like it does today with Windows 10S. It's a one-way street, in other words. But the difference is you're going to see this choice, and I think everyone's going to see this. I think this is just going to be the way it is across the board now. One of the steps of setup is going to say, hey, we've got this streamlined, secure, reliable, performant mode that only runs store apps. You can choose that, or you can go full-blown whatever version of Windows you have. And that is actually really important, because if you think back, now obviously with Surface Laptop, which is a one-off, you have the ability to download and install image that will put Windows 10S back on your machine. This is helpful if you upgraded to Pro and later wanted to go back for some reason. But there are no other mainstream versions of Windows laptops out in the world running Windows 10S. And so it's possible people could have been stranded, that they would literally have no way to get back to S if they wanted to. By putting that choice in Windows setup, everyone will be able to go to S. Everyone will be able to go back to S. So even you on your ThinkPad X1 Carbon or whatever that never would come with S, if you download the image from Microsoft in the future, you'll actually see that as a choice. And I think this is part of their strategy to try once again, hope springs eternal, to get people to go down this path. I think it's going to fail for whatever it's worth, for all the same reasons that it failed last year. In fact, as we were starting the podcast, I've started writing a series. You may recall, I guess it was last year. Obviously, it was last summer. I wrote something called Living with Windows 10S. So I've got a new series called Living with S Mode, right? And so what I'm going to do is blow away the Surface Laptop, go back to the original install of S, get on the Insider Preview, get the latest version of RS4 on there, and for the fourth time, I think, try to see if this thing is doable. Now that they've rubbed the version, so
yeah,
we'll see.
I do. This is going to be interesting. If they're going to start shipping all, are they going to start shipping all Windows PCs in S mode by default? Is that the to consumers? Let's just talk consumer side. Is that the plan? Is that what we're?
I don't know. I think it's going to be the switch, and this is funny. We need to go back and look at the stuff that we got because I'm very curious about this. There were licensing differences, especially on the Pro side, based on whether you as the PC maker chose to put, S mode or non-S mode on a device. The difference in price on home was zero, but the difference on Pro was some dollar amount, depending on whatever. Based on what I was just told, outside of all this stuff, kind of unofficially, this is going to be a switch in settings. And that tells me that we're not going to even think about S mode. It's just going to be a choice the consumer has when they bring that PC up for the first time. You go through this series of steps. First, Cortana yells at you for some reason, and then you choose your privacy settings, and you connect to a Wi-Fi network, whatever it is. I think it's going to be one of those choices, and they're going to, they'll present it as they do side by side. Are you sure? It's like, do you want to sign in with a Microsoft account? No, I don't. And you have to kind of find the option where because it's buried. And then you click on no, I don't, or whatever it says. And it's like, are you sure? Because there are all these great reasons to do it. Like, they'll probably do it just like that. So I think the right way to think of it, assuming this is true, is that the PC maker will choose to put Home or Pro on like they did before. Here comes my cat. And she hears my voice. She knows I must want to talk to her. Oh, drop the mouse on the floor. Anyway, that was me, not the cat. So... and I think it's going to be up to the consumer. Microsoft has so much data proving that nobody wants Windows 10s, right? They have all of the PC makers who have completely ignored it on mainstream or premium laptops. They have all of the users who did buy a Surface laptop, 99 point something % of which immediately went to Pro. Like they know no one wants this, and they're about to get a lot more data. Yeah. I think they're going to see a higher uptick now, frankly, at first. And I think what happens over time is it goes back to 99 point something %. Because, in every case, you're going to run into that little dial. Oh, can't do it. And people are going to say, oh, but look, I can flip a switch.
I can flip a switch, too, and look at a cat now.
Kitty cat. Silly cat.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to be very curious to see how Microsoft actually pitches this when they're actually formally ready to, because clearly this seemed a little off the cuff, if you will. And I'm sure they're going to have a clarification on what they expect and how they expect to use this. But
so I think the problem with the Joe B tweet, if I could just pile on him a little bit, is that he provided some information in a tweet, which I always think is wrong. That's terrible. It's the wrong thing to do. And he also provided bad information. He said next year. It's not happening next year. It's happening this month. It's happening in the version of Windows 10 that is almost finalized right now. So I think that is probably what triggered the post, that they got so much feedback and questions from people, and not just customers, but from reporters, bloggers, whatever. And they finally it finally came to such a head. They were like, look, we need to address this. Let's make this happen. So I can assure you, no one over in Building 32 is hanging out there past 5 p.m. on a normal night. So whatever. So they did what they did.
Yep. The S Mode saga will go on. We will be curious to see how this officially evolves and kind of manifests itself inside of the Microsoft marketing machine, which is always an interesting beast to keep your eyes on. And so,
yeah. God, this is such a controversial topic. It's like it's been handed to us with a cake and some presents. It's like, it's so beautiful, but fundamentally, and I feel like it's so easy to criticize. We kind of lose sight of the point of what we're doing here. In the Windows 10s is a good idea. It's just not a good idea for today, or S mode or whatever. And I hope to see Microsoft continue to make these baby steps forward, right? Faced with what will be incontrovertible telemetry data, they're
That's a
going to
big
have to
word.
keep making some compromises. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So I hope they keep doing it. And we'll see. So 1809 will come down the pike eventually, and there'll be another blog post at 5:30 p.m. PT where they say, okay, actually, we're going to just make it a switch.
A couple other things here to dive into quickly. It looks like Spring Creators Update is the actual name based on what Walking Cat tweeted out today. That will be fun.
I know that's popular for you, or something you were looking forward to.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this yesterday somewhere, but the Xbox updates all use this naming convention too. So obviously on an Xbox, you're not creating anything other than tiers for your opponents. But it's always been spring update, fall update. Pretty much. I mean, actually sometimes they've had like November update or whatever, but system updates, now that they're on the Windows 10 schedule, it's pretty much spring and fall. So Microsoft throws in creators, because creators is the new term for productivity. People who produce content, people who are making something, whether it's words or whatever. So the fall is going to come around again, and
hopefully, hopefully we make it to the fall.
And my expectation is that we will be dealing with the fall creators update again. Because what's the difference? And if this cat knocks that stuff off my desk, I swear to God, I'm going to murder it. Please don't do that.
Well, because we don't want to see a live cat being murdered on a podcast, I'll jump over here while Paul takes care of a feline friend. A couple other things. Microsoft pushed out a skip ahead build, and the big news here is that File Explorer is getting tabs. Actually, they're bringing out sets a little more formally here, so it's definitely coming in Redstone 5 until they cancel it in July and then tell us that it never was actually coming in the fall.
I assume you looked carefully for any language in the blog post that suggested that maybe this thing wasn't going to make it in this release, but yeah, it's not there, right? So it looks like they intend to release this in this version.
Still crossing my fingers for Cloud Clipboard, but we will. Well,
there was no mention of Cloud Clipboard. I did look for that, and also, this thing right now is suffering from the same problem as My People, as Timeline, which is part of that task switching interface, which is that it requires developer buy-in, right? So in this initial support, or this initial version, I guess, it's only some inbox apps. So it's some store apps and a handful of desktop apps that ship with Windows 10, like File Explorer, which is important. And things like Notepad, I think, and probably, Paint, whatever, so apps like that. And that's good, but obviously I think actually, are the Office apps supported? They might be. They probably are.
I hope so. That's kind of like one of the best places to use it
for people. Yeah, multiple Word tabs or whatever. Go right back to that MDI interface or whatever it was called from the past. I don't know what's going on with that.
Just going to leave it on the cat for a few minutes.
She's very happy to be petted right now.
Don't we all? Other things, too, if you are deep in the Android world, Android P is now out. I know we'll have a lot more about that later. Paul's having some, I think, fun getting it up and running on his phone at this current time.
Yeah, I've already written about 800 words about how I am, or, I wrote it as if I had already done it, because, of course, I was going to do it. Switch over my Pixel 2 XL to Android P developer preview. For the first preview like this, it's not an over-the-air update. So in a future update, what you'll be able to do is go up to the Google Android website, Android developers website, tell them you want your phone to be part of the program. It has to be a Pixel or a Nexus, and you'll just get it over the air like you do all Android updates. It's a really seamless, easy thing. But for the first release, you have to actually flash your phone. You have to use arcane command line tools. You have to, what do you call it? Turn off the security in the bootloader. It's not exactly the right term, but whatever it is. And there's two forms of locking that occurs on these devices. Obviously, I have a like a Pixel 2 XL, so it's unlocked, like in whatever sense. But there's actually like an OEM bootloader lock, I guess, in Android now. And go figure, but Project Fi, I think, is what's blocking me from doing this. It's in developer mode. I got all, everything's correct, but I don't. The option to turn that off is grayed out. So
well, that's not fun.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pull out the SIM, flash it, assuming I can flash it. And then I'll put the SIM back in and just use it. But, the natural question here is, why would I take a perfectly working phone, and my main phone, by the way, my actual phone number, and put like a developer preview? And the reason is I was going to flash this thing anyway. I talk a lot about the problems I have with Pixels, and one of the big ones is performance degradation over time. I've had this thing since November. It's about 3 months-ish. And it's already doing that thing where I hit the camera button, 1, 2. I mean, it's really bad. And so what's the worst? Well, the worst that could happen is it could make the phone into a brick, I guess. But if it doesn't work out with Android P, I'll just go back. I mean, I can flash it back to the factory thing too. So first, I got to figure out this little bootloader issue I'm having. So I will do that, and then hopefully I'll write about it. Otherwise, I will maintain radio silence and just move on with life.
I still have reservations about the Spring Creators Update name.
I know. I'm sorry.
I think I would honestly be so much happier if it was just called Spring 18 Update. But
yeah. Or if you're going to do that, like just 1803. It's just 1803.
It's the word creators that really annoys me, because as what I see in my head, and people are going to probably send me nasty emails, is I see all these people sitting around a table inside of Microsoft's campus going, oh, we're going to empower the creators. Look, people want to download Chrome, and they want to browse the web and watch YouTube cat videos. They're not creating shit. If they are, they're on a Mac. Sorry.
No, all they're creating is obesity. You know, I couldn't agree more. And again, they have the data. You know, they're never going to share this, but nobody's using these new things. You know, all this.
Paul, are you telling me that nobody has opened 3D Paint, created an object, and uploaded it to 3dremix.com?
Yeah, and when I say nobody, I almost mean literally nobody. I don't mean like, you know, there were misclicks that occur. People launch these things. Some people in the past, they try to trick people into thinking it was paint. Yeah, you know, my cat's playing with the current. I don't know. So, I get it. I get why they have to do this stuff. I know they need something to put on a list. Like, look, here's all the new stuff in the new version of Windows. But at least we can say this. Like things, whether or not they're successful, popular, things like Timeline and Sets now, and hopefully more stuff coming in this next version, are signs that it's not all, you know, nonsense features. Like these are legitimate attempts to increase people's productivity. It's good. So we'll see what happens. Alrighty. You got anything else for today? No, I'm going to keep trying to ruin my Android phone, I guess. And if I do, or if I don't, I guess if I can get this to work, I'll write about that. Well, lovely. I'm going to wrap it up here today. Show, folks, is brought to you by cloudberrylab.com. It's not... Geez, I really screwed that up. It's Cloudberry Lab. You can check them out at cloudberrylab.com/FRD. Learn how to back up your data a little bit better. Free trial offers, and check out Paul's review if you have some free time. And we'll catch you right back here tomorrow on a live show at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where I suspect it will be another... Actually, tomorrow should be a good show. Have yourselves a wonderful day.